Thank you, Professor Robbins, Ambassador Shireen, and the Asia Society for hosting me here for a second time. It's wonderful to come back here and engage with people who have been great friends of Afghanistan and students of Afghanistan. And last time I was here, I left here, and things that Barney said were happened, let's say. But I want to say what it is that I had been focusing in the past, for the past year, as the National Security Advisor, about thinking about how do we end this conflict. First, from personal experience on what we experienced, what happened as we were growing up in this conflict, and how it came this far. And then looking at it from an institutional perspective on what do we do to end it. There is one conflict in Afghanistan, and that is the Afghan conflict. But there are multiple dimensions to that conflict. We have the internal dimensions in the internal dynamics of power, people fighting for power and the way they think that that country should be run. But then there are grievances that are much more local, that have been generated over the past 20 years at least, and the 4 decades that we have had the different versions of this conflict ongoing. And then there is the economic aspect of it. The drug economy that many of you know has been at the center of this conflict. And then the proxy wars that we so often talk about, those countries who have been using Afghanistan as a platform for their own objectives, either in Afghanistan or by fighting their wars in our country so that they don't have to on their own. And this proxy war perhaps is the one most dangerous. From the perspective of fighting the war, we have no issues. Afghans are ready to defend their nation. Every day I meet with our security forces. I meet with them on the battlefield. I meet with them in the hospitals after they have been injured, and I meet with their family members. They never regret that they are where they are. Even those who are injured, critically injured, and they tell me that they would go back out there the minute they're better enough to be able to stand on their 2 feet so that they can continue to defend their country. It's very clear to them what they're doing and why they are there. And that sacrifice means the protection of what we have as a land and as a people and as a culture. But when it comes to the political aspect of it, that's when it gets complicated. I reacted to certain things that were happening when I was here last, and the reason was that most of our issues are actually institutional. It's the continuation of institutions that will be able to provide the solutions that we need, and that is peace. Peace will come, but it may not be at a distant negotiating table. Peace will come in much more smaller steps, and we see it every day. I'll give you examples, a few examples from our security forces alone. We were, as you know, a dependent security force, mostly dependent on the United States financial help, but also on technical help, on advisory, and also on their other capabilities that came with it. We don't need it as much anymore. The most dependent force in our security apparatus is the commandos and the special forces in the police, the different kinds of special forces we have. We have the crisis response units in the police. We also have the commandos who do operations in the military. And the dependency that I can quote from this year, 1,057 operations by the commandos. Only 4% of those operations were conducted with the help of our international partners. Right? Only 4%. In the special forces that the police have, and that is largely when an attack happens and they go out to clear, 8% of the support came from outside. And they have averted some of the most difficult attacks. Those of you who remember the Mumbai attacks and on Taj Hotel, It took days to clear. We have that. Unfortunately, we have had that on a monthly basis, and every time an attack happens, within a few hours, the CRUs clear those on their own. The institutions that have been built are doing the job that they needed to do, and that is to bring stability, to make it harder for anybody to bring violence to our country, and to clear areas that are taken by insurgents and their terrorist friends who would like to harm you and others outside of Afghanistan. And that institutional support and that institutional development has been as a result of many sacrifices, both by Afghans and our international partners, particularly the United States, who have had, as a country, the most casualties after the Afghans. And we are at a stage where we now are able to conduct these operations, clear our country, and hold them on our own. Right? To give all of that up so we can start all over again is where we think that we go wrong. And that is why, we have strong reaction to when people talk about creating interim setups in Afghanistan. A lot of our conflict has always been the continuation of power. We have finally figured out a system now. Democracy was Afghan, but it came with the help of our international partners. And now it has come to a stage where we are comfortable in dealing with it. It is working. We have a method of continuation of power and transfer of power, and we would like to keep it. And we think that that's the best peace plan ever, to have institutions that are able to deliver rule of law, governance, and security to our people, and are able to defend our country and all of those who have helped us build this system from terrorists who would like to cause us all harm. And that is what I think we are going to focus on post these elections in Afghanistan. Once a new government is formed, peace is going to be a top priority. But what we mean by peace may not be exactly what everybody thinks. It's not going to be a simple negotiations with those Taliban who want to have a political settlement. It's going to mean that we strengthen our security forces, we clear areas that are controlled by transnational criminal groups and are acting as political actors. We are going to clear areas and make it harder for those who are using Afghanistan for their international drug smuggling and other kind of criminal activities. And we're going to improve governance in areas where people have been driven to the arms of the Taliban as a result of the incapacity or the corruption in the system that we currently have. So it's going to be a multitude of those actions. In addition to that, we work with our neighbors to make it easier for them to come to terms with the new Afghanistan and work with them to address their grievances, because this conflict, as I said, has both internal and external elements. That said, I'll stop here and happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Shireen.